Hello, everyone, and welcome to this virtual Fireside chat. My name is Stefan Harrer. I'm the Director of AI for Science at Australia's National Science Agency, CSIRO, and I have the great pleasure and honor again to welcome Kimberly Powell, who is the VP of Healthcare at NVIDIA. Hi, Kimberly. It's nice to see you again.
Hi, Stefan. Thank you again so much for the conversation. I'm excited about this one.
Me too. Me too. It's really great to have you. NVIDIA has just completed the GTC conference last week, and there were a couple of really exciting announcements that you guys did around agentic AI technologies. And I'd like to dive into those with you. But before we do, a quick note for our audience. If you listen to this conversation, we assume that you know what AI agents are. If someone still needs a primer, though, I've linked an outstanding video into the comments section below that explains what AI agents are. They truly are all over the place. 2025 has been declared the year of agents. That's an honor, by the way, that it shares with the year 2024. AI adoption in pretty much every industry out there is becoming a story of adopting AI agents. Jensen himself has gone as far as to state that the IT department of every company is going to be the HR department of AI agents in the future. Being a scientist by heart myself, I'm super interested in one specific field in particular that AI agents promise to supercharge, and that is scientific research and development work. I think that AI agents can be lab assistants. They can help scientists along the entire scientific discovery chain, creating new ideas, designing experiments, predicting outcomes, analyzing data that comes out of all of this, verifying it, and then doing it all over again, and verifying our initial hypothesis. I think that entire circular approach here to using AI agents alongside scientific discovery work will massively accelerate our journeys to scientific breakthroughs, which would otherwise have been decades away or out of reach entirely. The health and life sciences, I think, are particularly interesting here. It's not only the scientific domain where some of the most exciting AI-driven science has been happening lately. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry, as we know, was just awarded for AI-powered breakthroughs in biology a few months ago. But also, really, can you think of anything more purposeful than helping us and our loved ones lead healthy and long lives? So that's really a no-brainer in terms of motivation and starting to use AI for pushing science ahead. You have given a fascinating keynote at NVIDIA GTC last week, and I did a TEDx talk on AI agents in biology a few weeks ago as well. Both of those talks are linked in the comments section below if you're interested. NVIDIA has focused on the health and life sciences pretty much from the get-go and brings some of its most advanced agentic AI to researchers in the health and life sciences. So I'd really like to talk about that with you. And I'd start with going into some of those amazing collaborations that you have struck and that you continue to push forward. Collaboration plays a crucial role in scientific discovery, and you continue to announce partnership with leading research institutions and pharmaceutical companies around the world. Some of those include Okin and Silicon Medicine, Recursion, just to name a few. And just earlier this year at JP Morgan Healthcare, you announced the latest round of those additions to your partnership network, Illumina, Mayo Clinic, the ARC Institute. I was hoping you could share a little bit of insights into how these collaborations come to be and how they leverage NVIDIA's agentic AI BioNemo platform to accelerate all those great things they do: drug discovery, genomics, biomedical research. So what unique challenges are these AI agents bringing to these partners that address these challenges and these interesting questions in their businesses?
Yeah, Stefan, I mean, I really admire the work that you do to try to educate, the community on what are these agents doing. This is an unprecedented time, but we've been preparing for it for a long time. Maybe I'll take even a step back. NVIDIA is a computing platform company, although we have a mission in healthcare at NVIDIA to bring the most advanced computing technologies to this industry, building domain-specific computing platforms that enable breakthroughs that otherwise normal computers wouldn't have allowed. And so we have the opportunity to work with the tens of thousands of companies across the healthcare ecosystem. This is a very broad sweeping, as you just described. The companies that we've made partnerships with, even over just the last couple of years, are reaching every part of the ecosystem. Some of them are medical device makers who are at the forefront. They're digitizing biology. They're digitizing biology at the organ level in medical imaging, for example, or at the cellular level in pathology or high content screening, or at the protein level with cryo-electron microscopy, or even at the DNA level with genomics. And so some of what you're experiencing here is we pioneered what's called accelerated computing over the last couple of decades. And we've been working with this ecosystem to, if you will, digitize biology at all of these multi scales. We are now at the point where without accelerated computing, the world would have never built AI. And now that we have AI, how can we take advantage of all of these different techniques of AI to operate, if you will, on all of this healthcare digital information? And when you talk about agents, the idea that we are going to operate on digital information to either increase our understanding of that information, a lot of this has to do with science, as you said, or we can operate on that information to generate new ideas or predict new things, or we can operate on that information to actually complete tasks, to automate work, which, as you know, in our healthcare system, it's very human labor intensive, and we don't have enough humans right now to serve all the patient needs that there is. And so we've now got this combination of accelerated computing and AI so that we can, one, really tackle the hardest problem in healthcare right now, which is understanding biology to its deepest level. Yes, we can digitize biology at extreme atomic level, but to really understand it is really the crux of understanding disease, and then kicking off, the journey of understanding how to, develop new medicines to approach that disease. And then it's all the way through to how can we help the clinical staff understand us as personal individuals, patient N of one, and collect all of the world's knowledge and previous knowledge of every other patient and every other medicine, so that we can really tailor a journey. And so you can see here that, just like I would say NVIDIA is probably the most consequential company in self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles, but we are not a car company. We have the same aspirations and believe that we can provide the same amount of consequential core technology to the healthcare industry. And we do that through, partnerships with the pioneers in the industry. And that's what you've seen really transpire, bringing accelerated computing, AI, agents that are going to facilitate everything from research and understanding biology all the way through to patient care is really what I call now, with the help of AI and working with the pioneers in the industry, we are writing the next chapter of medicine as we speak.
That is really so exciting, because it's really a matter of capturing the scale and the messiness and the multimodal structure that is the healthcare and life sciences space, right? And making sense of it all, and being able to understand. And I think you used the word decode biology, right? That I think that's really a very fitting description of the problem at hand here. So it's really good to see that that these partnerships are so strong, because at the end of the day, right, it's also a story of validating the value add that all this brings, and there is no better endorsement than having the top of the packed to actually work with these agents, work with your technology, and use it as part of their daily business and science work. So I think AI agents have the potential to automate these super complex scientific workflows that in clinical workflows that you were referring to, complex, time-consuming. Agents can really help with that. And I think I want to dive a little bit into that. At TTC, you coined the phrase "every wet lab needs a dry lab," and you spoke about drug discovery factories, continuous labs in the loop. These are all very bold terms. Can you help us a little with unpacking this and describing how NVIDIA actually envisions the role of AI agents in reshaping the scientific research discovery process itself and the impact that that will have?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the century or so of scientific research in the area of medicine, it's been driven by amazing scientists and their ability to now run experiments with all of the new platforms that I even described at GTC, celebrating some of the amazing, short read to long read sequencing, to single cell sequencing and perturbed sequencing, proteomics, multiomics platforms, right? Every decade, there's several new ways of measuring biology. And oftentimes scientists are working and they formulate a question and they go to the lab to try to answer something about that question. And what the world has done over the last, century is really kind of document that inside of notebooks. Yes, we evolved into what's called electronic lab notebooks, but we really haven't, created the opportunity to take every single one of those scientific questions and every single one of those experiments and codify them into what I would call a knowledge base. Okay, so just like we're going to do with large language models across all the enterprises you see in the world, where we're going to connect them up to a data flywheel to improve them every single day so they can offer better customer service experiences, for example, why wouldn't we want to do that for what is essentially the IP creation within companies? Lab experiments is really the IP creation that informs the next decision process, but then take the decades, if not century worth of that information and start to represent that into these very powerful models. It just so happens that biology and chemistry has its own language, and this language is represented in a sequence. And this lends itself to be able to take advantage of the language models we use every day with ChatGPT. It just requires a different kind of training process and a domain-specific platform that speaks that language. But once you can get that information in the computer, you can start to, essentially represent every single data point that has ever been measured. It encodes really complex relationships that if you saw something in this electronic lab notebook in 2023 and trying to correlate it to something that happened in the 70s, that is nearly impossible to go through at a human level. But if it was all inside of these models, these relationships would really start to emerge. You can do things like encode even the metadata of the experiment itself, right? Every scientist might conduct an experiment slightly differently, but if you have all that information, you're going to build this knowledge base that has traceability, reproducibility, and really at the end of the day, you now have a model that has your entire company's IP in it. And so we, have the opportunity now to learn from every experiment in the lab. And that's why, really taking every data point we're measuring and codifying that into these models that every scientist that exists today and might be hired tomorrow can immediately leverage. This is going to fast track and really, I would say, take advantage of what is some of the most costly and even, as I said, the most valuable data within a pharmaceutical company is this experiment data. And so once you have that, you want to complement every wet lab with a dry lab. That's just to start to really understand. Again, we think of it as unlocking really the understanding of biology and biological intelligence. right? And once we start to have that, then a lot of what you talk about is, okay, agents, being able to kind of do science in a conversational way with a computer. Asking a computer a question, I gave a demonstration about a multi-agent system that is doing biomedical research to maybe just, generate a new hypothesis of a potential drug candidate for cystic fibrosis. And it was a multi-stage agent process. The first agent really went through the literature to understand, are there new targets that have been discovered in the last couple of years that are associated with cystic fibrosis? Then it says, well, okay, what are the drugs that are viable on the market today? And can I use those as starter molecules? Because we know that they're not toxic to patients, so they're good starting points. But you might want to be optimizing for something else. And so then you have an agent that actually calls out to a set of AI tools that can actually do virtual screening, so even an in silico lab, if you will. And so you can see how we're really transforming the process of doing drug discovery with colleagues of scientists that might do it on timescales of weeks, months, and years, where now you're being able to string a bunch of agents together to work along your scientists and take something that is years down to months, if not weeks. And we talked a lot about our collaborators, Schrodinger and Recursion and Astellas and Genentech, who are really being able to measure the R&D productivity because of the injection of AI and agents into their R&D process. So we're really seeing, the output, the measurable output and shift in the drug discovery process.
And it's fascinating, right? And I've even seen that it extends into the physical world, right? You touched upon it. You can think about all the design of molecules in the virtual space, but then you can even use agents that interact in the physical world to run lab experiments at scale. And I think in silico medicine is doing something like this. So it's really an end-to-end solution, which I think also Jensen alluded to when he talked about physical AI, right? As the next stage. So it really changes the face of how science is done in biology, right? If you introduce that element and those agents to those workflows and bring them to scientists. It's also, I want to say, like, exciting because you see like a preservation of knowledge, right? We all have seen the experience, the situation where we hired staff into our labs and then they left. And oftentimes with that, knowledge goes out the door, right? But if you have actually captured that into in that knowledge base that you refer to, it will be there and it will be accessible and it will not be lost. So I think that's a real powerful element of all of this. Let's look a little further down the road in that clinical or in that biology workflow into the clinical space. Eric Topol published two highly interesting articles on the role of AI agents in clinical practice in the last few weeks. One was in the New York Times, the other one in the Lancet, and I've linked them both in the comment section below. The point that Eric makes in these pieces is that he makes this thought-provoking statement that instead of forcing both human doctors and AI to review every case side by side and trying to turn AI into sort of a shadow physician, a more effective approach would be to let agents operate independently on suitable tasks, delegated by physicians, of course, so that they can focus their expertise where it matters most. And so in this situation, AI agents would not be used to do scientific research work, but rather to perform and assist in the delivery of advanced healthcare services in clinical environments. When I watched your keynote and the announcements that you made, it seemed to me like you have actually foreseen this development and that you embraced it, because you spoke about NVIDIA's digital health agent ecosystem. You described it as being multimodal. It has this fascinating thing that I want to learn more about, this, what I would call or what I perceive to be like a super brain agent IQ in it. Can you give us a few examples of what it looks like when that agent ecosystem kicks into gear in digital health and how clinicians and healthcare professionals can actually work with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Topol, and he has been writing books about this for decades now, being a clinician himself and understanding how we're at this with this critical point, and it continues to worsen, unfortunately, which is the administrative burden and otherwise for our clinical staff is causing major burnout issues. We're spending $10 trillion globally on healthcare, and a good 30% of that is in operations and people and labor, and it's still tens of millions of people short in that labor. And so we have to deploy artificial intelligence to really help in this situation. At GTC, we had a healthcare pavilion. We had incredible, partners that were exhibiting in the booth, incredible stories to tell in the keynote. And what we see is there are going to be millions of agents that are working on behalf of both patients and clinicians. And every step of this patient journey, we are all patients, as you know, at the end of the day. We all have to experience our own and individual healthcare systems, no matter where you are in the world. None of them are perfect. And we now have something to essentially help us come to that rescue. Everything from a company, Humanate, who is at GTC with us, doing a patient intake kiosk so that you can have a rich experience with a human avatar who's friendly, who has patience, who knows a little something about you as you walk up, because it's able to reach inside your electronic health record. It knows a little bit about where you are. It doesn't ask your date of birth 10 times over again or have you fill out a piece of paper. It actually knows a lot about you, and it really facilitates a much more comfortable process as you go into your health system. You have great companies like a Bridge, who have profound impact on the clinician and patient interaction, where an application that can be easily deployed via a cell phone connected to an extremely sophisticated set of AI agents and mixture of expert systems to have a very safe and highly accurate and trustworthy system, so that when a patient is articulating what's going on with them, the physician is 100% intently listening, rather than having to type in what he or she has heard in that event and put it into a clinical note. It's capturing all of that information. It's structuring it into the electronic health record. It's linked to all of the evidence for why it believes this is the next thing that you should do, or recommendation, or in the future connecting it to the billing codes that are necessary for the whole system to operate. But there's so much actual data that's captured in the conversation that when you're coming to see your doctor because you have a symptom, they're oftentimes listening for something to figure out what that symptom is. But in conversation, you might have told them a whole bunch more information that has a huge application in other areas. Let me give you an example. It might capture something about my human history. Yes, my mother smoked when I was growing up, so I've been exposed to secondhand smoke. This information actually is super helpful in clinical trials. Um, Data points like that might include me or exclude me from a future clinical trial. Now, my general practitioner clinician, he's not thinking about a future clinical trial I may need, but in digitizing that information, we've now captured a data point that will be hugely useful for, running clinical trials in the future, either helping me find a future clinical trial or helping the drug companies design and strategize around clinical trials. So literally every stage of the process, whether it's your first encounter with the health system to your general practitioner, and all the way through to when you have unfortunately been met with some kind of a diagnosis, unearthing and finding all the possibilities that might be accessible to you, agents are going to be what's working on your behalf. And so, if you look at a Bridges outcomes, they're giving clinicians 3 hours a day back. Dr. Topol has been, thinking about this so often for a long time in all of his books, and of course in the articles that he's reading, is they're clinicians have so much to offer, but they've been burdened with so much. And so agents are not even, some of these agents that we just described, it's not about the diagnosis of a patient. It's about creating a better patient experience and creating, the ability for the clinicians to be thinking on your behalf, 100% of the time, rather than, what administrative work do I need to accomplish next? This is a boon for the industry. And as I said, that other component, which is connecting, the drug makers who are trying to find new medicines for all of us, connecting them to us, is the other, I don't want to say byproduct of this, but it's a necessary linkage to the ability of overlaying an intelligence layer on top of the otherwise digital information that we're collecting all the time about patients. So this intelligence layer has providers are going to benefit, insurance companies will benefit, drug makers will benefit, patients will benefit. It's a win-win-win-win situation.
It's really fascinating to hear, and it really resonates, because from my early days, really, I remember having these conversations with many clinicians that, were very outspoken about that bureaucracy burden that bogs them down to interact with the patient, interacting with the patient, and that really enhances the, as you said, the experience and the quality of care at the end of the day. So it's very exciting to see how this goes, and I'll surely follow the collaborations and partnerships that you have in this space very closely. Before we come to an end, and thanks for spending so much time here, I wanted to ask you for your look into the crystal ball and do a little bit of prediction of the future, right? You've given us a glimpse into where you see the future of agentic AI in health and medicine. Earlier, you touched on the role that foundational models play there. You've just released a powerful one yourself, Evo 2, with the Arc Institute. You have developed new reasoning models for smart agents, like the NVIDIA Llama Nemotron with reasoning model. So looking ahead and building on all the excitement that you see in your labs, in your partnerships, the collaborations that you've brought on the way, how do you foresee this to change the landscape of scientific R&D over the next 3 years, right? Is there any real breakthroughs that you see stand out? Any achievements, any more Nobel Prizes around AI in health and medicine coming up on the horizon? Share a little bit of your vision of where this all gets us in the immediate future.
Yeah, and Stefan, you hit on it a little bit earlier on. Where we see this all headed is you have these digital agents that are working in the digital world on digital information, on knowledge. And there's this incredible opportunity to connect these digital agents to the physical world. And so you've heard us talk now about this concept of physical AI, and this is the embodiment of AI in a physical world. These two worlds are colliding really quickly in profound ways that I think, again, is going to positively affect the two sides of the industry we've been talking today. At GTC, we had Lila, which is a new company formed out of Flagship, which is building a super intelligence to be able to drive, completely robotic laboratory laboratory right?
They just came out of stealth with 200 million, right? That's the
correct.
One with George Church, I think, as a chief scientist, right? Yeah, I saw that too.
Incredible, right? Because you see how, whether it's language and scouring through all the research that is actively going on, to modeling and predicting and generating ideas completely in silico, to being able to essentially create the right experiment into a fully robotic autonomous lab. A reconfigurable lab, everything, these worlds are colliding very, very quickly. And so this super intelligence layer is now going to overlay on this robotic, autonomous, physical AI layer. Ginkgo was also at GTC, and as you said, in silico medicine is pioneering this already to make this this robotic lab system and this, you know, what Alex and the in silico team have done is really set the pace for what drug discovery should be at, you know, call it 13 months to go from novel target to novel therapeutic candidate to enter the clinic. They're setting the pace, right? And so now we can see how we can really have these two worlds collide. On the other side of things, what was also just so amazing to see at GTC is you have agents that are running inside the walls of the hospital, but they're in a physical manifestation. For example, Moon Surgical is a surgical robot assistant. Okay, it assists the surgeon by holding the microscope, the endoscope, excuse me, and holding other tools that might be necessary. And they released their first, what they call SCO pilot, which is the first AI-driven motion movement. By tracking where the surgeon's working, it can autonomously move the camera to stay in view for the surgeon. Not only that, and that was just FDA cleared last week, they had 7 different agents running right on the robot. You could speak to the robot and you could say, the surgical assistant, and you could say, could you pull up Kimberly's previous MRI images so that I could, you know, look at her for the surgical planning? Could you tell me, does she have any allergies to medicine? Does she have any other comorbidities that I should be aware of, because we might need to extend this surgery by another 30 minutes, and does this put her in a danger zone? Never once did anyone in the operating room have to take their hands or eye off the ball, which is the patient, to retrieve that level of information. So again, you have this digital agent connectivity world to the physical environment world that is both machines and humans operating together. And so these were just 2 perfect manifestations of how these 2 worlds are going to collide in pretty magical ways, whether it be to drive science and the flywheel of science at extreme pace, or whether that is to introduce, you know, and we also announced with GE Healthcare the future of autonomous imaging. You know, imagine an autonomous X-ray room, or we had a demonstration of an autonomous ultrasound machine that you might be able to now just get an ultrasound at your nearby pharmacy. This is the true future that instead of it being 10 years out, there's no reason why this isn't, you know, within 12, 24, you know, couple years time that we're going to see these autonomous systems working together with these digital agents. So that's what's so exciting about the future.
That's a really wonderful vision and description that I will not add anything to. Thanks a lot for sharing that. I will make sure to follow this all very closely. We're also working on actually some of this here at CSIRO, and I'd very much be looking forward to share some of that with you as well soon. But for now, I'm really thankful and delighted that you took so much time to discuss this vision, what's happening on the ground, the plans. This is majorly interesting and relevant to all of us. And so I'm already looking forward to our next conversation where we maybe revisit some of this and see more of what comes out of all these exciting developments. So thank you very much, Kimberly, for making time.
Stefan, thank you for the opportunity. It's amazing. You do fantastic work, and I appreciate the opportunity very much.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
See you later.